In this session, we will hear about the accessible city for people with vision impairment, the opportunities and challenges. And it's Donata
Kończyk.
yes, and Hannah Malik who is going to present this lesson.
Thank you. We have a great pleasure to take part in this conference and to take part in this session. But I could say that I'm not sure that we completely fit in this subject. I hope it would be a short take a breath for you because we move a little bit farther. Today we would like to share with you our vision, which we have been introducing since 2016 to make the city, to make Warsaw more accessible to all, including persons with visually impairments, for blind and low vision. I'm Donata Kończyk, as was said. I'm since 2017, I've been working in the city hall or city of Warsaw as a Warsaw Mayor's Plenipotentiary for Accessibility. I'm also a head of accessibility division, but I think it's also important that I'm orientation and mobility teacher, and I graduated in Tyflopunkts. I think it's important for things which we do.
And my name is Hannah Malik. I am an architect. I work in the same access division. I'm also NRA consultant. So I do access audits. And today we have the pleasure to be here and probably, as Donata said, give you some information on the city. Hopefully it will. So first of all, as many of you may know, the city was completely ruined during the Second World War. And you will see in the image in the top left corner, the images of the Old Town Market taken in 1945 after the war. And then when it was rebuilt around 1960. You also see the image of the modern, at the present times picture, where there's a carriage with the horse and the lights are lightening the old historic buildings. This couldn't be possible without the very big dedication of our historians, architects, and of course Warszawians, who physically helped to rebuild the city. There's also another picture of Jewish ghetto in Muranów district, not far from here. It's close to the center. The pictures shown how it was demolished in 1945 and then rebuilt. And there's also the image of the modern city. And we are happy to welcome you in a completely different, lively, as I said, modern city that changed in last about 20 years significantly. So yeah, we can move on. But to know Warsaw, it is important to understand some facts about it. So first of all, it's quite large. It consists of 18 districts. The districts lies on both sides of Vistula River that you can see from our place. These both sides, on the west side, we have a natural embankment, which also is topographically a barrier for people who have physical impairments, difficulty to move. And from the concept of management of so large city, as a city of Warsaw, we have 40 departments, different departments that are responsible for managing. Our department, the welfare and social projects, have access division. But to understand, they are about 1,600 organizational units that manage the city, and about 20,000 people work. We found our city of hall and organizational units. So it's a quite vast majority of people who have to understand that we take responsibility for some solutions, and that we have to educate so they know what we shall be supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And now a short presentation of our team. Mm-hmm.
In the organization so large as a city of Warsaw, there is a clear division of expertise and responsibility. There is the mayor's plenipotentiary for accessibility with the appointed team of coordinators. It's over 120 coordinators within the main structure in each district. And practically in any institution, organizational unit, the coordinator of accessibility shall be appointed. Then there is the accessibility division, which is responsible for the work of plenipotentiary. It's, as Hanna said, it's a unit within welfare and social project development department. The division responsible is for giving guidelines to improve accessibility, mainly accessibility standards. Within our team, there are various specialists, architect, road engineer, web accessibility, specialists in plain language and easy to read, also ICT specialist, a person who are responsible for accessibility plans, and specialists in access team coordination.
Mm-hmm. And what's interesting, we are also proud that one of our division is actually very inclusive team. The half of the team are people with disabilities, various mobility, vision impairments, or the person with the deaf, the person with hearing impairment.
This photo was taken last week in Warsaw Zoo Garden when we celebrating the Global Accessibility Awareness Day, and also to make accessibility audit and something like that. Okay, a few words about our approach. For us, it's important to know our residents, to know their needs. And in 2018, we carried a survey, scale and structure of the phenomenon of disability in the capital city, because we don't have data about inhabitants with disabilities, and we recognize that in every 5 households there is one person living with disabilities. We know that 12% of the population, which is about 200,000, more than 200,000 people living in Warsaw, have disabilities. About 18% of this population are persons with visual impairment, blind or low vision, and almost half of this population, there are persons who have more than 60 years. When we think about accessible city, and when we think about a person who are blind or low vision, we know that 2 things are very important or very crucial. The fact that the lack of vision or low vision makes difficulties in spatial orientation and to getting enough or properly information. This is very, very important to know that this is the main 2 factors which have influence for daily living in the city.
In the image, you can see a lady in the red dress who's touching the tactile model of the Old Town Market. Maybe later on we'll just say a few words of our tactile models. Let's move on.
In the Warsaw Development Strategy, Warsaw 2030, universal design is one of the main horizontal principles. We introduce it by accessibility standards. Our accessibility standards and guidelines apply to architecture and infrastructure, mainly for public spaces, built environment, parks, streets, bus, tram stops, have to comply with our high accessibility standards. In case of existing infrastructure, we run our annual program of action with which addresses the barriers and eliminates them where is needed. It's important that in Poland we don't have national architectural standards, and it's very important that in the city we have since 2017 accessibility standards and try to improve them.
Maybe, for example, in other countries, you will come up that regulations are well explained, they could be illustrated, they would be executed. In our case, in Poland, we would have very basic parameters drafted in the regulations, but there is a lack of graphics, lack of drawings that designers could use and they could understand. So in our situation, few cities already implemented and introduced a new law standards, and that's how also Warsaw followed.
But always on the local level. Information and communication technology, this is also the next very important for us, and including easy to read documents, provision of sign language interpreter, and also induction lobs. City website which was developed to comply with WCAG 2.1. Also, we have and prepare the next edition, our guidelines for accessible events. This is the main tools which we use in our daily work in the city.
So when we look at inbuilt environment, at the image, in the middle image, you will see Świętokrzyska Street. It's a modernized street where we introduced the standard where the cycle lane is divided by a functional zone, where you can see there are seats, they are plants planted, trees planted, and they are different types of maybe cafeterias, or the usage is universal. And then there is a wide path for pedestrians. So the standards introduce regulations for crossings, for streets, for parks, and for, in particular, bus and tram stops, to make sure that designers and our officials, workers, staff understand the standard. We introduced various trainings, and one of the projects called Warsaw Has Its Own Standards was well accepted and introduced in 2020. During that project, there were various audits carried to understand what are the barriers inside the buildings or around it, but also to educate what are the requirements. And to enhance further, I think since last 3-4 years, we have been promoting, and there is an award, the Mayor's Architecture Award, that has own particular category for the most accessible public building. So let's move on. Tactile wayfinding system can be more and more used recently. and we pay attention how to use it, where to use it, and not overuse it. So we've learned since the first standard, since 2017, that it's not useful or functional on very narrow streets. It could be used when you apply it on squares, maybe on wide avenues, where people can misunderstand the direction. Updating the standards help us as well to understand how to end the tactile wayfinding system, where to place it at the bus tram stops. And in some cases, we also recommend it in buildings, but we try to not overload it. When it comes to crossings, there are a few factors important to remember, and one of them is to keep the way in the shortest way, perpendicular to the sidewalk. But we also promote the separation from cyclists to pedestrians by different material, which could be a stone, it could be a warning factor, and to improve the mobility, the traffic lighting have embedded sound and visual device. And the other factors that are represented are in the standard, because in general there are hundreds of drawings that follow the requirements. We look after if the slopes are comfortable, gradients are low. In case of maybe one image, in case of a color and contrast or renovations, often we require to use both stairs and ramps and add both color contrast to steps and to railways, handrails, to keep the handrails continuous and extended above the first and last step. And if you imagine just looking into from the scale point of view, the city changes every day, and there are many construction works happening, and even today we've noticed some works around it. So it's very unpredictable surrounding, which means that we would require to inform about the alternative routes or create alternative routes that they are accessible.
Okay, some thoughts about our challenges. We are proud to say that since 2016 we have provided a range of works changes. The Access City Award received in 2019 from European Commission become a challenge to continue and introduce yet more changes. Our key aspect is to make the city a better place for everyone. Means that we aim to get to know our residents and apply the best practices in terms of the city's scales and structure. Major challenges in creating a city accessible for visually impairments inhabitants I put in key words. The first one is cohesion. The size of the city and the implementation of investments over time make it extremely difficult to maintain the consistency of the solution used in the high quality for a long time in a different part of the city, for example, in the north and in the south.
Over the time, these changes overlap, and you will see that within one town, within one city, there are different solutions, different tactile markings used, and they can be in different way applied, and that makes it incoherent from that perspective.
The next, it's management. Urban infrastructure in the city has many operators. For example, when we think about roads, we have in Warsaw 18 roads operators. It means that also there is the next factors which is very crucial to do things in the same way. Many places are not management in the city by other entities. Some of them are public, but also private, and it is also difficult to influence for them to do things in the same standards, to use the same rules.
The standards apply in general to public investments funded by city. So that's because the city introduced it, not the government, which would apply to every investment. So that's the difficulty.
Mm-hmm. The next is standardization, and it's connected with things which Hanna said. Lack of standardization of solution to national level. It means that implementation is more difficult because also designers and contractors have to learn a new in each new project, new investment, new work. Also, we recognize the lack of research, standardization of solution, or even different solution used in different cities in Poland. The next one is conflict of interest. Different group of residents have different needs, even in the group of persons with disabilities. When we think about, for example, blind people who need curbs, and when we need, for example, wheelchair users or persons who have baby
strollers, and they
yes,
would rely on lowered curb. Mm-hmm.
When we think about blind persons, some of them prefer tactile information, some of them things which is provided by new technology or science. This is also, you know, challenges. The next one is knowledge. We provide systematic range of training, as Hanna said before. We recognize that it's important for our staff, but also for designers, for teams who have done work for the city. But also it's very important for residents, because they don't know the solution which we try to improve. Also, it's important for professionals, for example, for orientation and mobility instructor, because this is things which is not constant. We don't have a national solution standards. That means that it's very difficult to in proper way prepare a person to live in each city. The next one keywords or challenges is life change. It's connected with the things that the city is not constant. We still are in move, are in change. City is alive. It's connected with different things. It's connected with the changing organization of the streets, renovation, events, and in that context, it's important to support habitants in the information and maybe sometimes additional mobility trainings when the routes should be changed. This is also important. And the last but not least, individual perspective, because it's not necessary for a big city to respond to report individual needs in easy way. It's connected with the scale. we try to do it in the mainly for our annual program of removing barriers, and residents can report an issue via the channel to quick permanent constance. We call it Warsaw City Contact Center. It's open 20 hours by 7 days. It's available for many channels, for example, email, chat, telephone, mobile application, and also sign language interpreter. But I could say that from individual perspectives, when someone needs to wait for something, for example, 6 months, 1 year, it's a huge time. From a city view, it's quite it's not too long for prepare some things.
It takes time, yes. In the image, just before that, you see the aerial view from the skyscraper into Palace of Culture and Science. And here there is a sketch showing the new center, New Warsaw project. It's introduced and it's been prepared for the last few years, and it's happening. The streets are marked with yellow, showing that the squares will be linked. There will be more pedestrian paths. The zones, residential zones, will be introduced. So in a nutshell, the project tries to make it more coherent city center, where now a very large wide arteries, they are dominated by cars. And the city was developed in 70s, where very wide arteries had to be made. But we've seen that the car traffic should be limited, slowed down. The preference will be for public transport, for cyclists, and for pedestrians. So because the city center is modernized, we hope that the standard will be applied. And in the next slide, there are various visualizations of the design. They are squares embedded with lots of plants, trees with lots of greenery. There would be new water ponds installed or fountains to make sure the sustainability of the project is achieved. There will be also mainly footpaths for pedestrians, and where it's necessary to produce cycle lanes, that they are separated and in a different color. In the city center, if you have come from the railway station, you've probably noticed we have quite many underground passages, which are inaccessible. They are very difficult for orientation. They are not well marked. And since 2019-20, I think, yeah, we have started the design of new on-street passages. So pedestrians can easily now walk through the main roundabouts, which gives all of us more comfort and security. So yeah, thank you very much for having and listen to us. We'd like to finish, and if you have any questions, let's maybe the last slide will give you the opportunity to ask, and thank you.